Good afternoon. Welcome, 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 or I should say good morning for those of you who are a couple of hours behind us on the East Coast. I have to start out by making a disclaimer statement to get started. We're using new technology, and so if it looks like none of us know what we're doing, well, there's a very, very good reason for that. It's because none of us know what we're doing with the new technology. Today we've got a great treat for you. We're talking about leading with profitability. I noticed a number of people who are actually on today's webinar, and I'm going to tell you there ought to be 3,000 or 4,000 people on today's webinar, because the reality is that the only reason each one of us should spend time away from our families is to actually make a profit. And when we make a profit, that's not enough. We actually have to make sure we are saving our money so that we actually have some security for the future. And we have a real treat today. We've got a gentleman. See, there's my first mistake. I obviously don't know how to operate the president. I'm getting trigger happy already, Jim. But my name, by the way, is Cleve Gaddis. I'm coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm one of the Workman Success Systems master coaches. I tend to work with fairly large teams and brokers who own teams. I do some consulting in the mergers and acquisitions area, and people want to change things from a brokerage standpoint. We help that. I'm hoping that I probably will have met a lot of you on the webinar, but we've got probably, if I had to choose anybody in the country that I want to talk with about making money, saving money, I'll be honest with you, Jim Knowlton would be at the top of my list. I met Jim back in late 2014, Jim. I don't know if you remember, October, November of 2014. We both worked at two different brokerage companies. We have two very dissimilar, not similar businesses, very dissimilar businesses. And not that that's a problem. It's just that he did a lot of REO business. I did a lot of regular retail business. We, by the way, do both share the fact that we both have daughters. I'm better at it than he is. I have 4. And he has 2. He has 2. But from the first day I met Jim, I knew here's a guy who's very systematic in the way he looks at the world. He's also very smart in the way he looks at the world. And I'll be honest with you, when I get myself stuck, and Jim, don't sort of disclose all the conversations we have, but when I get stuck in my personal business or family stuff that's going on or something to do with a coaching client, Jim is always the first person that I reach out to. So, Jim, I want you to know it's a pleasure for me to host this and have you on here today and talk about how we're supposed to lead with profitability. Before we go into it, let's do just a little housekeeping. And, Jim, I don't know if you have any comments you want to make before we jump into the
Yeah.
Okay.
All I want to say is that's exactly true back at you, because you know that whenever I get stuck, I call you. And I also want to thank you that you didn't put on my slide, I'm a master coach, so you feel like you're my boss. So I noticed that's why you did that.
Yeah, is that what I did? Let me go back. Should I change it? Director of Coaching? Yeah. So I should put Director of Coaching - Cleve's assistant.
Exactly.
Is that what I should do? Okay, I'll work on that. Chet, can you make that change? Director of Coaching, Cleve's assistant. I don't think I can do it in the presentation format. So real quick housekeeping. We normally do this on a different platform. I think I'm guessing on your screen that you have a toolbar down the right-hand side of the screen. And I would love for you guys to click on, I think it's the second icon down, which is the chat box. And I think all of you will be able to post questions in the chat box. And so I would love it if all of you who are on, like literally everybody, go in and just type test or hello, or maybe Jim is beautiful. You can type Jim is beautiful in the chat box. So let's just see who can try the chat box and see if we can make it work. We'll give just a second to let you go in, click the second icon down, and see if you can type a message. Okay, there's a test. So that's obviously somebody who doesn't think Jim is very attractive because they said test. We've got another test. Jim, nobody's taken the Jim is attractive.
I know. I'm not taking it.
I think Jared Hauser, he's a wimp. He won't say, oh, Jim is beautiful. I saw Jim is beautiful. Hello from Boston. That's great. Hello from sunny Pensacola. That's awesome. I love Pensacola Beach. Holy mackerel. Let's do this. Chris Randall says, you guys stop goofing around and give us some good information. You're wasting my time. I love that. This is good. So we got 2 Jim is beautiful. So that's great. So it works. Please, please, please ask questions. I'll be monitoring these this chat. If you have a question, I promise you, Jim, if you don't mind, I'll probably just interrupt you and ask you the question, and we can dig in. And don't worry if you ask a question and we don't have the answer to it. Either Jim or I or Chet or somebody will get the answer, and we will get it back to you right away. Make sure you stay on to the end. We do have a link for you, and we have some very, very cool tools. Hello to Magnolia, Texas as well. We appreciate you joining us today. So let's just go ahead and jump into it, Jim. If you don't mind, I'd love to kind of do this a little bit like a radio interview. You start talking about what you want to talk about. I'm going to ask questions because I'm going to have a lot of questions. Hopefully they'll be representative of what most of the people in the audience are thinking as well. And so if you don't mind, I'll just interrupt and we'll rock and roll.
Go for it. And I just want to, in full disclosure, say the only You're Beautiful was Taryn, and that's actually one of my team members. So that was actually wholly called in by me.
No, I saw two You're Beautifuls. The other person, I've met them before. They're blind. So,
yeah, exactly.
So go ahead and talk to us about the importance of proper money management in basically someone's ability to be a good agent or a team leader, because I think that's what you mean by this slide.
Yeah, so the first thing that we got to keep in mind is, as you said, Cleve, the reason that we're here is to make a profit if we're going to be away from our family. And then we want that profit to be turned into wealth. And the difference between profit and wealth is profit is what we make, wealth is what makes itself over time. And the thing that's been most surprising to me over the last 5 years is I've talked to agents that are literally new in the business, just over 100,000 in GCI, to teams of 1.5 to $3 million that we brought in, is the entire lack of accountability to what they make and keep. One of the most prevalent things that I see is people will often talk about their pay-per-click. So Boomtown, Commissions Inc., Zillow, all of those platforms, and they'll say, last year I made $200,000 on pay-per-click. But then if you dig in and this person happens to be on an 80-20 or a 70-30 split to the agents, you'll actually find that to make $200,000, they lost $10,000. So understanding our numbers and what we should be doing and what we should say no to are probably the most important parts of owning a business, which is being a team leader, broker owner, whatever it is, a strong independent agent.
So Jim, as I listen to you say that, I couldn't help but think that what you're implying is that whether you make $150,000 a year in gross commission income or you make $1.5 million in gross commission income, it's quite common for both of those scenarios to lead to no profit at the end of the year if you don't handle it correctly. And so I think those who are listening, and we've probably got some $1 million producers, but I used to look at people who had $1 million or $2 million businesses, and I would think, man, if I could just get there, I'm going to rake it in. But the reality is, if you don't put the right standards in place, and so you don't think about needing to have all of your accounting systems in place. And Jim, I know you're going to talk about this when you're making $150,000, but in my opinion, if you don't do it then, you're going to be off track and you might not ever get it fixed.
Yeah, and it's this whole concept that I'm on a cash in, cash out basis, which means I get a commission check. I immediately put it, if I'm even better, I put it in my business account, but most people put it directly into their checking account and then they spend the whole thing. And we know that we're a minimum of 20-25% just for taxes. So we're already starting minus 25% because we spent 100.
And then April the 15th of next year, we go, what? Yeah. I got to pay. I need to pay taxes on this money? Are you kidding? Yeah. So very interesting story. My mom started in real estate in the late 80s, and I was in my 20s at the time, in my early 20s, and after her first year in real estate, true story, Jim, she had to borrow the money from me, 30 years younger than she was, to pay her taxes because it never dawned on her that she needed to pay her taxes. And I think she had made $130,000 or $120,000, which is a lot of money in 1987. So let's go. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, if you know beforehand, if you know before, the end of the year, there's tons of things as independent contractors that are available to you, buying equipment. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can defer. This is, it's hard the way we get paid because we pay both sides of Social Security and all that stuff. But the fact is you have twice as many write-offs, and I'm not a tax guy by any means, but if you wait till January 1st, any opportunity you had is already gone.
So interesting, and I'd love to leave everybody with a thought. So I think when you're self-employed, your effective tax rate should be lower than anybody on earth who is an employee. And I think, Jim, that's what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're paying self-employment tax on all of your income and you've been in real estate for quite some time, you probably need to talk to your CPA about taking some distributions and dividends so you don't actually have to do that. So that is great information. Maybe you and I'll do a follow-up on this one in a month or two and talk about some of those strategies. So anyway, talk to us about the overwhelming percentage of people in the country who suck at financial management.
Well, again, I think I was watching, I'm kind of a financial junkie, and I was watching on Facebook the other day as Dave Ramsey, who I don't do a lot with. I haven't read as much of him as I would like, but he's doing this whole thing about what cars actually cost people and the $500 that they could have been putting in investing over 60 months or 72 months
Right.
now. And this is exactly it. And we're actually seeing in our business, we have stayed relatively REO focused, although this year we are going to be almost 50-50 retail to REO. But what we have seen in the last, I'm going to say 3 to 6 months, is we have seen probably a 75% increase in fee BPOs, and we've been running about one assignment a week, which we've not seen since probably 2007 to 2009. But what we're looking at is, because most people live paycheck to paycheck in the keep up with the Joneses game, especially in New Hampshire, which is a very conservative place, when things go wrong, it goes wrong very quickly. And I am seeing that pressure starting again already.
And so for those who don't have a little understanding of the REO business, what Jim is saying is that the mortgage companies have concerns about a particular mortgage, and they want to start gathering information before the what hits the fan. So they're paying him to say, here's what's happening from a value standpoint, so they can realize in advance, are they underwater, or are they overwater, or how's this all going to work out? So that's a very significant thing, Jim. That's some great information.
I'm not sure how it's going to come to pass, but one of the biggest surprises for me for the last couple of years has been the average car loan has gone from 48 to 60 to now 72 is the standard. Yeah. And the average payment is over $500. I mean, I bought my first house. This sounds like I'm 150 years old, but I bought my first house about 1980 late, and I paid $42,000 for a single family house, and my payment was like $387. Imagine paying $585 now, and you got to look at the percentage of your income. There are times it's okay to pay $587 for a car, but you got to look at the percentage of your income.
Yeah, so interesting. By the way, everybody on the phone knows you're only 120. We know you're not 150, or we know you're 78. But I talk to people all the time, Jim, and they think it is absolutely, positively, perfectly okay to not only have a car payment, but to have 2 or 3 car payments. As long as you've got the cash flow in order to afford the car, they think, well, why not buy it? And I'm like, I don't understand that question. What do you mean, why not have a car payment? Because if you don't have a car payment, then you don't have to make any payments, and you get to use the flipping car even though you're not making payments on it. And so I think everybody should have a goal to have absolutely, positively no car payment. Talk a little bit about having no savings or financial plan and how important that is.
Well, it's funny because that's what I was actually just thinking, kind of the minimum. And again, I'm not an expert, but the fact is I like to play here a lot. 6 months is the minimum. I was just thinking, I think we have 10 or 12 closings, and we're a relatively small team. We have 10 or 12 closings this month, but I haven't had a closing in the last 4 weeks. So the fact is if I don't have $10,000 or $15,000 that I can move from one account to another, I mean, I'd have to borrow money or be late on my payments. So 6 months is kind of the minimum. And again, if you're in one of those places where you're behind, it may take you a year to get that 6 months, maybe 18 months. But the sooner we start and build that security, and we're going to get into why we worry about money in a bit here, but the sooner you start to build that security, you find that your relationship with money changes pretty quickly.
Amazing. Wouldn't that be nice if everybody on here could feel like they were in charge of their money instead of being led around by the nose by all of their financial circumstances? 33% of baby boomers have less than $1,000 in savings. Now, let's first of all clarify who a baby boomer is. I think everybody understands $1,000 in savings is not a lot of money.
Yeah, I think you mean to switch to the next slide.
I did. Is it not there? Hold on.
Oh, there it is. Yep, mine just was late.
Yep,
yeah.
Sorry.
So again, we're talking about, and I want to be clear here. I'm a convert. I can remember back in the day when I was in college, I worked a full-time job and I was having trouble paying my bills one time. And I sat down with the business owner and he went through all the things I own. And he says, really simple. You're paying more than you're making. You got to get rid of something. And I sold my truck and did some other stuff. It's that simple an activity, which is if you take everything you pay every month and subtract everything you make, you pretty quickly have a cash flow statement. And not having $1,000, we're assuming that everybody here is average and has a $500 car payment. That means you couldn't pay for your car for 2 months, never mind your house, your groceries, and the other things that go with it.
And these baby boomers, those are the generation that's slightly older than me. So that's my mother. And so these are people who are closer to retirement years, and we're saying they don't have any money saved. And it's really sad to think that people work their entire lives and they don't basically have any cash. Now, they probably have some assets through the value of their home, but I mean, it is sad. So, and here's the problem is when you don't have any money, then you are subject to the whims and the wishes and the desires of everybody around you, and you don't have any control. And Jim, the reality is if you called me and you said, Cleve, I need you to help me with XYZ, I would do it because of our relationship. But I love the opportunity that I could say, you know what, I don't really need to do that because I don't want to do that. I want to go do something else. And I think that's a cool place that everybody needs to try to get to. And listen, everything you can mess up from a financial management standpoint, in my early 20s, I did it all. I was fortunate enough to have a mentor who had made about $5 million in the vacuum cleaner business, and he told me exactly what he did and how he saved money, and it basically changed my life. So let's jump on to the next slide. Is it showing up? The next slide showing up for you, Jim?
There it goes. It just came in there. Yep.
Cool. So talk to us about this. I thought this was so I never really thought about money this way, in that it's not the money that I'm after. It's my feelings about what I can do and what having the money does for me. So talk to us about this.
Yeah, so what we think is we want to make lots of money because we have lots of money, but that's not really what we're after. If we stack it on our desk, it doesn't give us any value. What it gives us is the feeling of empowerment, freedom, security, helping others, able to do the things we want to do. So what money gives us is it gives us a feeling. So if we don't know which feeling we're looking for, even getting the money doesn't help. And I believe there's 6 slides that move forward that are the 6 most prevalent. But the thing to remember is money for money's sake is nothing. Money for, the most common one is certainty. If we don't have certainty, we're always worried. So the first typical law or emotion that people are looking for is certainty. So when people say, I want to make $100,000 or $1 million, what I say to them as part of either an onboarding for coaching or as part of a coaching call is, well, what will that $1 million give us? And oftentimes it's not, the $1 million will not give them what they want.
No, in a lot of cases, $1 million is not even enough to retire on, because you can only probably draw out $40,000 or $50,000 a year without decreasing that asset. So let's talk about the feelings of empowerment and freedom and security and helping others we love. And so I know a lot of people, Jim, who want money for money's sake, and I can see it because their glasses cost $1,000 and their car cost $150,000 and their suits cost $1,000 and their country club membership, thank God they allow them to make equal daily payments or they could never actually keep up with it. But that's $50,000. And so I assume what you're trying to say here is that the real reasons people should want to have money don't really have anything to do with the power of the money or the drippings because I know, because you and I have conversations about the investments we make and the opportunities we want to provide for our futures and for our daughters and for them to go to college and how we're structuring things. And so I know you're in a very select group of accumulators of assets in the country, but the reality is that I've never seen any visual outward signs, meaning I've never seen you try to impress me or anybody else by the fact that you're accumulating some money. And so let's talk about how people can sort of get this a little better aligned in their minds.
Yeah, so, it's funny what Cleve is saying there is that I'm a terrible dresser and I'm too cheap to pay the tab, which is all true.
I'm just saying your suits come from Target, and that's not where I recommend you buy all your suits. That's all I'm saying, Jim.
I think it's Men's Warehouse, but you'll have to ask them because I don't shop those. But
they get their suits from the same place. They both buy their suits from the same.
So what I think about is, think about certainty and uncertainty being the first two that we want to cover, right? So when we get to that $150,000 mark, which is significant, because in order to be in the top 5% earners in the country, it's just over $350,000 of income puts you in the top 5% of earners in the country. Now, by state, it varies greatly. Like if you go to Louisiana and you make $180,000, you're in the top 5%. If you're in New York, it may be 700. I'm not going to get that specific. But
right.
We get that money and then we do that outward, what it is that I think is going to give me that feeling I want, whether it's the car or the boat or the second home. But what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for that feeling of certainty, which means that I get to make the choices of things that I want to do. And by going to that asset or that not asset, because it's not going to retain its value, but by going and buying something, I'm typically going against that, which is I'm not building that security I need to meet that first need. So the actual act of showing the world that I'm successful takes away from the ability to actually mentally say to myself that I have certainty and I can move on to some other feelings.
What a great, I hope everybody paid attention to that. So the act of showing the world I'm successful and have money decreases the amount of stability and certainty and choices and my ability to help others. Oh my God, I've never thought about that before. So trying to impress other people doesn't really have anything to do with us having good feelings of achieving something or having security or something like that. I want to bring up for the helping others we love. We have Anthony Margulis, who is a great coaching client of ours out in Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles. He and his group donate 10% of all proceeds, all revenue to 5 local charities. And it won't be too long, Jim, before they will have given away $1 million. And I'm telling you, when you get into that office with those people, man, they're alive and they got choices. I mean, they're doing what they want to do, and it is just so powerful. So I know this is what you were alluding to, was the 6 human needs that drive relationships with money, and you talked a little bit about the very first one. Is there anything else that we need to talk about when it comes to certainty and comfort?
No, it's just the need. We have a need to be in control, and the first thing that we do is if we put away money, we have the ability for that rainy day. However, most of us don't feel in control of our money because we don't have a fixed income. We make X this month and Y next month. They're not the same.
So, Jim, since you and I share the fact that we have daughters, and I know we've probably got a lot of other people on the phone who are parents, I always equate me saving money not to being able to do something with the money specifically to help my daughters. In a lot of cases, we do that. I mean, the only way to solve the problem is, to help them. I know you had one go off to college and she thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And then she didn't think it was the greatest thing in the world. And, you got to get home and you got to have choices. And we certainly have struggles in our family. And what I find is interesting is that if you just have a little bit of stability for the future, then it gives you the freedom not to worry today while your daughter is in crisis mode, which, by the way, happens quite often for you and for me. It gives you the ability to focus on them without worrying about where I'm going to go earn my next paycheck. And so forget whether or not you have enough money to bail them out or do whatever for free or hire the best lawyers if they get in trouble, because I don't think that's really the point. I think the point is that you have the freedom to focus on what's really important, which is the family, which is really all that's really all any of us have to leave behind. So let's go on to the next one. So I like this one as well, unless you had something else you want to cover on that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of you I see on the screen there know me and have talked to me at events. And one of the things most people know is we had a significant health scare in my family about 5-6 years ago. And I was able, because of my job, I was able to take almost 1.5 years off. I did work, but I was not very good at it. I was just phoning it in. But I was able to maintain a reasonable amount of income and I did end up spending a bunch of savings. But the fact is I was able to go through that process with my family, and it turned out fantastic. Thank God. But the fact is that I was able to do those things that were most important to me because I had put some money away. Yeah,
thanks for that, Jim. That's so important. So important. So, and if you're listening and you don't feel like that would be the case for you, save some money. I don't care if it's $200 or $300 or $500. When you save your first 500, it doesn't seem like a lot, but you got 500 more than you used to have in the bank. And for those of you who are way ahead of that, if you have 50,000, then make it 100 or 200,000. So let's talk about uncertainty, but more importantly, the variety. And this is interesting because as we get older, I find that I need more kind of spice, and you know, I used to sort of be an idiot when I was in my 20s, so I had no problem having a lot of fun. But now that I'm in my 50s, money makes it where I can have a little more fun. Talk about that.
Yeah, I love the last two sentences on this slide when I wrote it. It says you like surprises you want, and you call surprises you don't want problems, right? So we cannot get in a situation where everything we know is, I mean, you just don't want to be there because it gets boring. And I think one of the things that happens to real estate agents that don't grow or grow their business or grow their team is it becomes very monotonous. I do 25 transactions a year. I make enough money to survive. But the fact is it just doesn't seem fun anymore. So I think uncertainty is that process of having surprise in your life. And when it's a problem surprise, you're able to address it the way that you would prefer.
So I had misunderstood the point of the slide. It's like we want to have the type of variety we want to have. And I'll tell you, I've got friends, and every flipping time they turn around, something else has happened that they don't have any control over, and it's causing their financial life to go into tailspin. So, you know, having a little money would help with that. So let's talk about all of our need to feel significant, because I know that, you know, the default position, if people were really vulnerable, they would basically say, you know, I feel insignificant, I feel a little bit inferior, I'm a little bit nervous about this, that, or the other. And we all want to feel like we're somebody in our family and our business.
I haven't found a single award yet in real estate that hasn't been thought of. And when you look through this list, obviously I threw a couple in there. I'm the top left-handed agent. You know, I'm the top agent that lives in a red house. You know, the fact is the way in real estate we provide significance, the way we talk about it, the importance of our position is by what award we've won. When really, if you just turn that to say the families you've been able to help or the people you've been able to make a change in their lives, that's truly the significance you're looking for.
That is so true. That is so true, because I've never been able to eat or spend any of my plaques.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I actually looked today because I check my numbers pretty regularly, and I was in my franchise portal, and I always look at where I am ratings wise, and I'm in an office of about 280 people, and I do real estate half the time now, and I'm number 6 in my office. I'm number 131 in my region, and I'm number 1151 in a 150,000 person company. But the fact is, it doesn't pay the bills. You can't help but look at them. And for me, I can't help but just internalize them, although it's not really anymore. There was a time when being the top agent in the state or in my company was what I got up in the morning to do. And it just doesn't matter today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you're talking about looking more at the families you're helping and all the really meaningful stuff. All of the coaching clients, for the most part, that I work with, and I have them from coast to coast, and, you know, from $300,000 a year up to 4.5, probably approaching $5 million this year. And once you get to a certain level, I mean, like literally none of them talk about where they are and how they compare to other people. They're just trying to refine their business and get their business to be more profitable and create a better experience for the people who are there. That's what they spend most of their time focusing on. Yep.
One of my favorite coaching clients has been with me since the beginning of the company 5 years ago. And somebody asked him, we've worked a lot on his quality of life, taking weekends off, not working nights. He's a grandfather. He's got grandkids coming. And he said to me one time, he was at a BNI meeting, and somebody asked him, how many houses do they sell, or does he show in a week? And he said it's the first time he realized that his role had changed from showing houses to teaching other people how to grow and get success in business. So he explained to this person that he didn't really show houses anymore. He helped others reach their goals. And I thought that was kind of the epitome of this slide.
That's huge. And it's funny, I know who you're talking about because I happen to be friends with him on Facebook. And I will tell you, there are way more personal posts now than I ever saw for the first couple of years that I was Facebook friends with this person. So I think that is cool. And I didn't even understand that was part of the stuff that you were working with him on. So kudos to you. Let's talk about love and connection and how money associates with that. Or, by the way, if you've got another comment on that last one, Jim, go back to that, please.
Well, no, it's just a whole cohesive group. Once you're starting to reach some of these feelings, or you're getting these feelings, they start to piggyback on each other. So when you have security, you start to reach out to others. You're helping them succeed. They become a family. We're a very small team here. We've not had 100 people here over the years, and the fact is, we got somebody leaving for a family reason, and we're really sad about it, because we really truly get to know these people, and they're part of our family. So for me, as I get more financially stable, I don't worry about exactly, although I keep the workman way in my mind of inspecting what I expect. The fact is that these are people I'm trying to grow their lives, and some people take a little more time than others, and that's my feeling I get from having money, is that although, and I can do stuff like pay somebody a basic salary to get them going in real estate, because it's not a big concern to me. I certainly value the money, but I value their growth and figure that that's an investment to me down the road.
Hey, so before we jump into the love and connection aspect of why people might want to have a relationship with lots of money, make sure, guys, if you have questions, make sure you post them in the chat box so I can get them to Jim and he can answer them. I am sure that there are people on here who have had not just one, but 3 or 4 thoughts and questions, and I want to make sure we get those answers. So, Jim, let's talk about love and connection.
Again, Cleve, I'm going to go with the fact that the more secure I get, the more I can hire on core values and build people in my life that have the same values as I do. I go from being a group of people working together to a team of people who have a common goal, and that to me is the love and connection section.
Got it. Got it. We'll get to the next section. How about growth?
You know, growth is that one that I think is the most tangible of our money, of our showing that we have a different relationship with money. We obviously can do different things with our business, our family. We have to make sure we're in balance. So spiritually and fitness, your friends and your giving. But one of the examples I like to use in growth is when you look at investing in a new pillar in your business. It might be pay-per-click. It might be a new open house program. It might be a farm. I'm going to say that most of those things take 12 to 18 months to return, and I can grow my pillars. I can grow my money and my feeling, because I have the time to do that. So I think the more financially responsible I am, the more that I can grow in many different. I can hire a trainer. I can do things for my family, and it's going to something that the money does that gives me a feeling back, not actually the money.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I remember early in my sales career going to all the free seminars, and by the way, they were great. But they're not like a seminar that costs $2,500. It's hard to get into because the level of information, and I'm not telling everybody listening to go and start investing $2,500 going to seminars, but the older I get in my career, the more money I invest in training and development. And I've had as many as 3 or 4 coaches at the same time working with me on different things. One of them was a fitness coach, and he failed because I still weigh like 35 pounds too much. But other than that, I've gotten a lot out of my relationships with the coaches, and being able to invest in that kind of stuff makes a big difference. Let's talk about contribution.
Contribution's the easiest one because it's the most tangible one, whether it's our church, whether it's our family, whether it's someone in need. It is really why, one of the things that people who don't know Burl would probably know just from who he is, but one of the biggest things for Burl is just how he gives back. And he believes that coaching, what we do, is a way to enhance others' lives, and that's how we give back. So that's probably my best one for that, is everything that we do to help other people grow is our contribution to them. So that's probably the one I can use best there.
And if you're a team leader and you're more financially secure than you were 6 months ago, it will flat make you a better trainer, because when you are desperate to get every closing, then everything's got to be right, and you tend to manage people like this. You're just like freaking on them, and they can't stand it. And when you have a little bit of financial freedom, then you can really pour into your people. You can contribute to them in a totally selfless way, meaning, Jim, I want to help you with this, but only because of what it does good for you. And you're thinking, well, what's the difference? Well, if I really want Jim to learn something, then I have to let Jim make mistakes along the way. And if I'm desperate to get the money and Jim screws it up, then I'm going to train him very differently. So, and a lot of times when I watch people running teams, they don't run it from a genuine position of contribution. They run it from, let me get all I can and move on. And if you want to unlock the real world for you, running a team, you've really got to make sure that you're focusing on everybody else's success even more than yours.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing. We've done a couple events, and in those events we've taken donations or we've paid, and sometimes we give the food pantry, we give the cabin behind us is some cabins on a lake, and we give those, and sometimes those are $50 or $75 donations. But literally, a guy came in here the week before our movie event, and he said, "Listen, I'm part of XYZ, and I know that you do donations in the community, and we just like to be considered, and even $25 would help us." So don't think that you got to have $100 or a $500 contribution. There are places that $25 will change someone's life, and it was really cool that this guy came in, and now he's on our list, and we're going to vet him a little bit, but we'd love to give him a little money when we get the opportunity.
So, and Jim, if I can brag on one of my people, we've got a marketing lady who, and we do these client events, and we've got going on in August, we're doing free new Facebook and LinkedIn and professional bio headshots for people. And one of the charities that we donate to is a place called Rainbow Village, which is typically for people who have been the victims of domestic violence, who are homeless. It's typically women, kids, and they provide housing for them. And they have 12 people who are in their program who are coming on Thursday the 20th to have their new professional bio shot for, maybe their resume or whatever they're doing. And I'm like, oh my God, that is something that is so meaningful. So it's not about, stirring the pot and making sure we have plenty of business. We're actually able to give back just a little bit. So I think on this slide, Jim, we've talked about people saying they're making a lot of money on pay-per-click. I think we probably talked about the need for more income, and do you really need it if you're not saving any? But let's talk a little bit, because I know you have a specific way of looking at I can't afford to hire the admin. And your question there is, can't you?
Yeah, I had a lady today I did a welcome call with, which is when someone comes new into the company, we do an hour with them, and doing about 25, 30 transactions, making a reasonable amount of money. And she actually owns a brokerage, and she has had up to 11 brokerage agents. So say the total is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 people, and she doesn't have an admin. And so it's kind of funny. I've got this lady who should be listing houses and leading others, and basically what she's doing is the admin position, and that was her belief, is that she couldn't afford to hire one. So we had a whole discussion around what would an additional 5 hours a day or 5 hours a week be to you if we could get that offloaded to somebody else. And again, remember, you're not making a lifetime commitment when you hire somebody. One of the biggest limiting beliefs to people hiring is, when I hire Cleve to work for me, I'm marrying him and I need to be with him till the end. The fact is, if we go into every transaction that we do with our best intentions, if it doesn't work, it's okay. So and you want to look at that decision over a 90-day period, because one of the things that I want everything in my business and my life, including coaching, to be is I want it to be a return on investment. So when I pay $30,000 or $40,000 for an assistant, I want that assistant to make me $80,000 to $120,000.
Yeah, or more. And by the way, somebody was dealing with the lady who runs my office, and every once in a while she acts like she's the boss. I'm not sure the best way to say that. And somebody said to me, well, why in the world would you put up with that? I mean, she was kind of rude. And generally, she's very respectful. But the reality is, she's so valuable to the business that she's like having a family member. And we just sort of work stuff out. But she can stand in for me. And in a lot of cases, all my coaching clients, I'm trying to help them develop somebody who can stand in for them. Because when that happens, it's amazing. They can travel without getting a single phone call, which is huge, huge, huge. And most of you, I imagine, you're out trying to spend time with your family, and the phone rings 4 or 5 times, and you feel like you haven't even been with your family. So sorry, Jim, I'm probably going a little slowly on this. I know we talked about some financial stuff. Let's hit this real quickly, because I want to go through profitability, and I want to get into your bucket system and things like that.
Yeah, so I would say, with everybody wanting us to see that the question section is working, anyone who wants to say they're current with their taxes, anybody wants to say they get quarterly or monthly P&Ls, go ahead and give yourself a shout out. And then my personal favorite is not knowing your numbers until the 14th of April, as we're getting ready to file on the 15th. So if you're one of those great people that, has a budget, has been paying their taxes on time, gets a profit and loss statement or similar, go ahead and give yourself a shout out, because these are the basics of being a business. And even that last one, knowing your numbers before your taxes are due, gives you tremendous options. So that's one of the things we should see on our Agile. That's one of the things that we should see. That's one of the ones we should see regularly, because it's definitely going to help you as you move toward a different relationship with money.
So let's see it. Who's current? Who's not? Do a thumbs up. Do a thumbs down. Do a Y or an N if you're current on your taxes and you're current on your P&Ls. Put it out there, and don't be afraid to be honest if you're a little bit behind. Let's give it a second and see what people do. What happened? How did my slides change? Let's go. Come on, people. Be honest. Be honest. Let us look under the covers.
I saw Rob was on there. I think our coaches. What are that is a very popular one. There you go, Joe.
That's a different class. That's a different class. Don't worry if you don't know what taxes are. The IRS will teach you.
Exactly. They're very helpful. Good job, Jared.
Ooh, I like it. Hey, Jared, stop ruining the presentation. You're talking ahead. Good gosh, he's obviously knows what we're going to talk about.
Exactly.
About the bucket.
He does.
Talking about the buckets.
All right. Anybody willing to say they're a little behind? Anybody willing to say, hey, we could definitely use some help there? All right, go ahead, please.
All right. Hey, so we've talked a ton about profitability. Let's just talk about a little bit of key performance indicators. We're going to talk about commission, then we're going to talk about buckets, and we're going to wrap this baby up in about 19 minutes.
Yeah, so key business numbers. So one of the things that I found most interesting over my coaching career is I start with most of the people either I'm onboarding or that I'm working with, and most of them have an idea what they make, but they don't actually know what they really make. And I'm even talking just the income cash flow side. And one of the things that we've been able to see in Workbench, as Workbench, the proprietary technology goes on, we're able to get much better metrics. But one of the things that we've seen is when people do their key business numbers in Workbench or the supplemental reporting template, which is has some client urgent needs information on it, if you do that week after week, you see about a 15 to 20% GCI increase. And the reason being is we all have this thing called a reticular activator. So you go out and you buy a new truck, all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of black trucks. You buy a new boat, all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of boats. Your brain will link things that are similar, okay? So when you start to look at where you are in your business and whether you're done your 6 deals this month or you're 2 behind or 2 above, your brain will actually help you complete the transaction. So it's super important to do some basics at a really high level, and they definitely are a return item. And a lot of people in the beginning of coaching think that this is kind of an exercise for exercise sake, and it really isn't.
It isn't. And I've noticed some comments from Barclay saying, hey, people who are establishing budgets and following them is sort of a game changer. And it's really amazing. That is so true. That's what my mentor got me to do back in the early 1990s was establish a budget, stick to it, and really create the budget for how much we saved, which was only $300 at the time. But in 1992, I knew that if I saved $300 every month until I was 65 years old, and back then they used to say we could get 11% return. They don't say that anymore, but I knew I'd have $1.3 million. And I swear to you, I was banking at North Carolina National Bank, had this big red sign, and Jim, every time I drove in the parking lot, I felt like I was a millionaire, even though I was only making my $300 deposit. You laugh, but it is totally, totally true. I felt like I was a millionaire.
Well, my daughter.
Sorry, Jim.
You got me? Well, no, I was going to say my daughter Emily is a college student, and she actually is a college student. She is also an ISA for us, but she actually signed up for Acorns maybe in December or January of last year, and she actually tells me monthly how much money she's made. So I think she's actually up around $400 right now.
Wow. Not too shabby. So let's talk about the 2 most ridiculous forms of currency I've ever seen in my entire life. Well, that's just because of the pictures.
I know. Yeah. So what we get and what we keep and what we're doing now, folks, is we're transitioning to the bucket model, which is my favorite part of this whole presentation. But basically, this is the cash flow model. If we're using cash in, cash out, we don't get the 10 grand, we get the $1, and people don't think of it that way.
So hit that one more time.
Skip right over that.
No. I went to the next one because they're both talking about the same thing. And so you're talking about just basically moving from the debt model to the cash model. So hit that one more time to make sure everybody's clear.
So the best example is when you pay your car off. Let's just say we've got a 4-year car note, we pay it off. If we continue to pay that 4-year car note for another 4 years into an account that's dedicated for my next car, I get to move from the debt model of borrowing money to get a car to the cash flow model of paying for a car. Once I pay for the car, I get the benefit of my own money and no payment. So I can also divert that money to an emergency. So I have 6 months of reserves in my emergency account, but I have $8, $9, $10, $12,000 in my car bucket. And the fact is I can use that money for something else if necessary.
And you get to use the car
for free.
Well, you got to pay tires and gas and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, let's jump into the buckets because Jared Hauser ruined it because he talked about his bucket strategy earlier. But let's go ahead and talk about it anyway.
Yeah. So one of the things that I believe in a lot, and this is actually a Tony Robbins concept with some other people mixed in there, is this concept of buckets, which is people do better if they see a return on what they're getting. And when I save money, I get to 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000. It's too opaque. You can't understand what you're going to use that money for. So we get very granular in where our money goes. And you're going to see this in the next slide. But we start with passing all of our commissions. First, they pass through a separate checking account. The reason being is we have a private checking account and we have a business checking account. We also have business credit cards and private credit cards. This is step one to good tax record keeping. But the first thing we do is we take that $10,000 on the way to $1. We pass it through a 20% bucket that is for taxes and investments. Because again, as Cleve said, we use our independent status to drive our tax rate down. And then again, I'm going to put at least 10% into my savings bucket. Now I adjust those buckets based on whether I work in a cap system. So when I'm capped, I spend more into these buckets than when I'm not capped, but I'm typically running about 50% right out of the gates. I try to run it about 50% of what I make I can use.
50% you're not going to use, it's going to be for taxes and savings, and 50% you can use on whatever you want.
Correct.
And when you say bucket, you take the 10,000 and you hold it over the taxes bucket and 20% falls in there. And then you take the 10,000, you hold it over the savings bucket and 10% falls in there.
Yeah, and the best place we've found is a Capital One has an account that will allow you to, I believe it's do 12 or 15 or 16 separate named accounts that are all within the same account. So basically, I have one that's called tax and retirement. I have one that's called savings. I have one that's called, maintenance. I have one that's called car. I have one that's called Disney. Kids are both graduating from college in May of next year. So I have a bucket for that. So everything in my life that I know is recurring. Property taxes in New Hampshire are astronomical. They're the second or third highest in the country. So we pay our taxes into a bucket so that we can pay those when they're due.
And I want to make it clear that you don't have a Disney account because your kids are graduating from college. You have a Disney account because you love Disney World, even in your 50s. You're a huge Disney World junkie.
I am a Disney junkie, but my kids are the same way, and that's what they want to do for graduation. So we're headed in that direction.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, let's talk about the next group of buckets.
Yeah, this is where it starts to get impactful. So if you think of the crawl, walk, run series, the first bucket is our crawl. If you're starting to walk, this is it. And we mentioned property taxes. I do an annual payment on my life insurance policy, which again is another thing that we should probably talk about. People say it should be 3 to 6 times what you make in a year. So life insurance is very important. Car insurance in some states is astronomical. Home insurance, HSA plans, again, another way to save tax dollars is we spend our medical savings through a special account. And the one these days for families, college prices are spiraling out of control. And you better be from the time they're infants to the time they head off to that college day. And actually with our kids, we doubled up payments for this summer because in order to make the final payments we wanted to make, we were a little bit short. So these are beginning to show areas where we can get some real, and what I didn't say, Cleve, is that 10% emergency bucket is for emergencies. And emergencies is not I want to go to Bermuda. Emergencies are my furnace breaks or something that's actually an emergency. And this gives us the ability to protect that emergency money.
Love it. And you've got property taxes here because you're not escrowing them. If you're escrowing them with your loan payments, then you don't necessarily have to do that. So sounds like sort of the next set of buckets are all, how do I protect myself today and from issues today, and then how do I make sure that I have money available when it's ready for the future? And for any of you who are on the call who just had kids, even if your child is 1 or 2 years old, you need to start saving for their college today. And especially if you're in real estate, Jim, you might agree that if you have some extra money and you could buy a piece of investment property, you amortize that thing over 20 years, 15 to 20 years, next thing you know, it's paid off, and you can use the cash flow from it, or you could sell it, or you could refinance it and wind up paying for their college. And I think so many times people in real estate, I know, and we won't talk about this today, Jim and I both invest fairly heavily in investment real estate. And I think it is sad when I see people in real estate who don't take advantage of that. Jose just mentioned he's got the Air Force paying for his kids' college. That's freaking amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and one of the really good, sorry, Cleve.
I'm sorry, I haven't been able to talk to any of my daughters and going into the service. I've tried.
One of the things I love there, Cleve, is if you take that investment property and let's say it's got a positive cash flow of $400 a month, I take that and drop it into a 529 plan, and then I get to build the asset. Well, there, let's say I amortize it over 20 years. I then get an asset that I can keep, and then I turn around and I funded my 529 plan. So that's another great way to do that.
Fabulous. And then you're taking something and getting some tax advantage, where if you just took the 400 out and kept it and it exceeded the rate at which you were depreciating the property, you would be paying some taxes on that.
Correct.
Now we're in the future.
Yeah, this next thing are things that I normally finance. So I typically finance my car. I put my family vacation on a credit card. I don't have additional savings, but I can do it now. Home improvement, most people are doing on a home equity line, which again is just borrowing money. Dream vacation and that giant purchase. One of the things I like most about, and just so you know, this is the book I use the most. It's Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. It's 700 pages. There's a second book called Unbreakable, which is a synopsis of this book. But there's a section in Money Master the Game that is taking your dreams and breaking it down into their real costs. And I think when you look at these dream vacations or vacation homes or any of those things, we vastly overestimate the cost. Cleve knows this, and I'll share this with you. I have 2 properties in Florida, and the goal of those properties was to get these 2 properties netting no cost to us. So what we do is we have one that we rent weekly and the other that we use, and it basically pays for itself. So all of my goal in life is not necessarily to make money, although it should, but to never lose money. So, I think it was Warren Buffett said, the rule number 1 is don't lose money, and rule number 2 is see rule number 1.
So let me ask you this. So I know you and Deb tend to be on the same page because all this stuff seems great. But I know marriages where one person looks at finances one way, who's the saver, and if you leave it up to this person, and I'm just going to refer to her as her, if you leave it up to her, then you're going to have, not only are you going to have your first dime you ever made, but you're not going to have any fun for the rest of your life getting there. And then you have him who wants to spend money and buy fancy clothes and all that kind of stuff. Any tips on how you get a couple or whatever the relationship, how you get everybody on the same page? Because this takes a lot of discipline. And let's just say you and I were married. I wanted to talk to you about that later. I don't want to talk to you in front of the group about that. But let's say that we didn't agree on our family trip. So how do you get everybody on the same page?
Yeah, so when you think about a business plan being the blueprint for our business, if you think about a budget being a blueprint for our family, the fact is when I set up an account that says I can spend $4,000 for close a year, it doesn't matter what I spend it on. So what I've done is I've basically gotten the buy-in in advance. If I say my family vacation is going to be $6,000 and everybody agrees to it, there's not enough counseling that's done with couples in advance where we talk about our dreams and what we want to do and where we want to go. And I think that's a conversation we have to have. And the same thing with our kids. The sooner you start talking about finances with your kids, there's a great book called, if any of you have young kids, there's a great book called The Bank of Mom and Dad. If you haven't read that one, it's a fantastic way to teach them the value of money. But again, it's never too early to be talking about debt and cash and what the differences are between them. So again, have a discussion. The fact is this is all fixable if we do it over time.
Yeah. And no matter what, if you're in real estate, and I don't know so by the way, Jose, I'm sure you're totally right. Unfortunately, I have a 22, a 20, and a 19, and one is at Kennesaw State, the other's at University of Georgia, and the other's at University of Tennessee. I only have one last chance to avoid college savings, college spending by by sending someone off to the military. And so I'm going to go home and talk to her tonight. Maybe, Jose, I'll hook you up with her. I will tell you, though, based on her ability to get out and do the things you need to do in the military, the Air Force might send her home once she's a great kid. Not always the hardest working person in the world, but Jose, I'll take you up on getting some tips and tricks from you there. One of the things that I want to mention before we go on to questions and talk about the free giveaways is, in real estate, if you're a real estate agent and you're out there looking for properties all day, every day, you're going to have access to deals that nobody else will have. And I know sometimes people are a little nervous to invest in real estate, but sometimes you just gotta kind of bite them off. My wife and I own a property management business as well as the real estate brokerage, and so it's a little easier for us to buy rental properties and to manage them. But rental properties are a huge portion of my retirement dreams, my retirement program. And people who are scared of investing in the first place, just make sure when you invest in real estate that you invest for cash flow and cash flow only. So don't buy. I mean, I used to see people that would say, well, I'm losing a little bit of money every month, but I'm going to make it up in appreciation. And if you tell yourself that, you're going to lose that whole property over time. But if you can get some good cash flow in times of the market dropping and having real problems, rents don't tend to go down. They tend to keep rising. In fact, they tend to go up a little bit faster when people are losing their houses. And so if you can make it work from a cash flow standpoint, the nice thing is if you get your mortgage payments fixed for 15 years, 30 years, and so your ability to push cash flow goes up and your expenses other than taxes and insurance is about the same. Any thoughts on that, Jim?
Yeah, it's a little bit more advanced, but because we're independent contractors, most of us, we qualify for self-directed IRAs, and self-directed IRAs allow you to put up to $55,000 a year away, and as long as you don't take a benefit from it, you can actually own properties that are rentals in that account. So there's tons of things that you can do that will help you force save. Again, when you look at that number, the $55,000 is a percentage of your reported gross income or net income. So you may get a little bit less than that, but it's a direct cutoff for taxes. So you may end up putting away $20,000 or $30,000, getting a direct benefit from it, and then being able to go around and get something that makes $600 or $700 a month. That goes right back into it. So the plan that we're on is we can buy about one house a year based on the retirement. So we basically don't finance our properties, but every year we can buy a new one. So it's difficult right now, Cleve, and what you said is exactly true. I'm not buying anything right now because I just can't find anything that's of value to me. So I will continue to squirrel money away until it's time, and then hopefully it comes back around again.
But when you see something that meets your requirement, whether you want to buy it 50, 60, 70% of market value or you have specific cash flow needs, you actually have the money and you're ready to sort of pounce on it, and you're not scared to move forward. You're ready to move forward. When you're in real estate, we all should have a little bit of an upper hand and an advantage, if you will. If you have any questions or would like to make a comment or a thought to Jim, I'd love to see those in the chat bar. Anybody who wants to say Jim is beautiful again, I think that would be absolutely fine if you wanted to do that. I don't expect too many of those to show up, but I'd love to hear some comments. If you got a little tidbit of information or you want to give it a thumbs up or a, hey, great job, you want to tell Jim, I think it's great, Jim. I know you're the director of coaching, but you don't get paid to do these types of webinars. You're doing it because you're a good guy and you want to help people. So you can go to, and everybody write this down because it's going to be your only opportunity to actually get these. So Joseph wants to know the name of the books, if you will.
So there's two. There is Money Master the Game, which is the big one. That's the one that I have. So I don't know how well you guys can see this, but Money Master the Game. The smaller one is Unbreakable, which is, again, just the investment the portion of this. This has a lot of other stuff in it. And yeah, let's see. I'm trying to read these here. Okay. And I wanted to thank Jose. I wanted to thank Jose for raising a family that has so many people serving their country. Thank you very much. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Obviously, Monty has been drinking because he says Jim is beautiful, and Jose wanted to know the name of the book, and Jim is glowing on the topic, which is totally true. If you go to workmansuccess.com, workmansuccess.com/buckets, easy to remember, just remember the buckets, plural buckets, then you can actually download a copy of the full presentation. So if you'd like to use this with your team or in your brokerage and actually show some of the slides and use some of the same concepts that Jim used today, you'll have access to all that, and you can get it by downloading. And then we've also, because we say that regardless of where you are in your business, you need to have you need to be doing a P&L on a regular basis. And Jim, I would say of the P&Ls that I review for our clients, like 100% of the time, they are not accounting for things correctly. Yep. And so the P&L doesn't make any sense. And so this is a sample chart of accounts that shows exactly where your accounts should be, where they should fit into your chart of accounts. And so you're going to be able to download an Excel spreadsheet that'll have those chart of accounts in the exact order with where your income comes from buyer's agent and flows out through expenses. It's really great. Jose just said he did 20 years in the Air Force. Congratulations. I know I speak for everybody on the call. We absolutely positively appreciate your service. So Jim, we're about out of time. Give them any parting thoughts you have, and make sure you get down before we go, workmansuccess.com/buckets.
Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to reiterate an experience that Cleve and I had way back in the beginning of the company, as we were able to be in contact with somebody that was like a $1.1 million producer. And as that producer was telling their story, there was a bunch of questions asked and there was a bunch of information gathered. And in the end, what we determined was that person basically was making less than the average individual agent does. When you looked at what they were paying for, you looked at the split they were on with their agents, you looked at the things that they were using that weren't necessary. And I remember that Cleve said to him, he said, look, if I was you, and this is a guy who, again, his significance was that I made $1.2 million GCI. Cleve's incredibly dry way of fixing the problem was saying, well, geez, if I kept what you kept, I'd go get a job. And I want you all to remember that it doesn't matter what your GCI is, it matters what you keep. And it's much easier to control than you think. You just have to start with knowing your numbers. All the rest of this stuff, I don't care if you save $10 a week, it will have a return over time. So just start small, continue to grow, and wealth is the goal. This is not, nobody's been on their deathbed and said, geez, I wish I could sell one more house.
So Jim, before we go, I just wanted to mention Dickinson says they are watching from Kenya in Africa. I think that is freaking amazing. I would assume that's 6 or 7 hours ahead of where we are, maybe 8 hours. And then Monty wants to know where information on the self-directed IRA can be found. I can certainly give that, but you probably have a resource you would recommend.
Yeah, what I would say is put that into a Google search. There's 3 or 4 big companies for what's called a checkbook-controlled self-directed IRA. One of the things I'll tell you to be very careful with, and I'm learning this firsthand right now, so let me tell you that when Cleve and I say we've made the mistakes, the disallowed transaction section is explained pretty well in most of the books. However, it is easy to run amok of it by accident. So I would suggest whoever gives you the strongest backside protection. I'm not going to give the company that I use because I've not been particularly happy with the backside protection, but there are some that will guarantee audit protection and they will approve every transaction for you. I would lean towards those because there is not a lot of support for this particular model because they can't make any money at it. So it's basically a fee per year for maintenance of the plan. So do the search, read the reviews, and if you got to reach out to me at Workman, and I'll be glad to do a little something off the call.
Perfect. And that's Jim at workmansuccesssystems.com. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Jim at Workman Success Systems. And Jose, the answer to your question, the downloads are at workmansuccess.com/buckets. Gail is asking, is the slide you mentioned workmansuccess.com? No, it's workmansuccess.com/buckets, Gail. workmansuccess.com/buckets. One more time before we drop off, workmansuccess.com/buckets. Thanks everybody for attending, Chet. I don't have any idea how to stop the webinar, so I'm going to say the webinar is over. Everybody's dismissed, and let's all become millionaires. And if we're already millionaires, let's become 5 millionaires and then 10 millionaires and keep going from there. See you later. Thanks for joining us today.
Bye, guys.